Ugh.
Yeah, okay. I'm actually recording. Are you happy?
No.
Well, me either.
You know what I'm drinking right now?
What?
A Ruby Grapefruit White Claw. This is the bottom of the barrel.
You're so much smarter than me. I should have gotten out. I don't think I've ever had any alcohol while we were recording these.
Really?
Nope.
That explains some things.
I mean, I tend to make like a pot of coffee right before we start, and it's usually gone by the time we get to the end, but alcohol probably would be smarter, especially considering how many fucking problems we've had just getting to this point.
In the first aeon, I was the Great Spirit. In the second aeon, men knew me as the Horned God, Pangenitor, Panphage. In the third aeon, I was the Dark One, the Devil. In the fourth aeon, men knew me not, for I am the Hidden One. In the fifth aeon, I appeared before you as Baphomet, the God before all gods who shall endure to the end of the earth. In this new aeon, I appear to you as CMN.
Imagine that there is a brilliant white light just above.
Is commentary on the magic art.
In the years of the primal force and the dawn of terrestrial birth.
Oh, that was very educational.
Now magic will take place. Don't be fooled by what I just said.
This is CMN. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. I'm Scaramouche Kennedy, and this is Chaos Magic News, the only media outlet that hasn't benefited from Elon Musk wrecking Twitter entirely. As always, I'm joined by my rhapsodic co-host, Freddie Mercury Retrograde. What's up, Retrograde?
Hey, how you doing?
Yep, well, you already know what time it is, right?
Yep, I think so.
Okay. 1, 2, 3.
Beautiful.
It has been that kind of a day just getting here to this, the intro of Chaos Magic News.
Well, to be fair, this is the third or fourth attempt at the intro.
Yeah, it's bad. We started at 3 something, right? And it's like 5:30 now. 5:40.
I think we started. I want to say we started earlier than that.
Ugh.
It doesn't matter. We've had. If you can name a type of issue that would keep you from recording, we've had it. But
yeah, other than, I don't know, getting hit with an axe. But now I'm going to be looking around for axes, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it's really that feeling. I'm looking at my roof wondering if it's going to cave in on me or, you know.
Yeah.
But now that we're
here,
now that we're rolling, perhaps we can really pull it together and give the people what they want. Another fun-filled episode of witty banter and informative whatever the fuck. I don't know.
You tried so hard there.
I almost had it, but no.
Had it, but no, it killed us.
Maybe this can be a good episode for some people. You know, we're gonna try.
That's all we can say is we're gonna try.
We're gonna fucking try, dude. All right.
So our discussion section for today is gonna be ethics and magic. And we had what we thought was going to be a really great little thing to throw in here to lead into that. But let's just say that fan submissions have not been our strongest pool. There haven't been many of them, and we really appreciate everyone trying to give us anything, but they weren't all winners this week.
No, they weren't. And then we had what we thought was another good one, and then we realized that it would give away some information about some certain people, and that brings us to the ethics question, I guess.
Oh, hey, you pulled it out. Way to go.
Yeah.
Well, because you came up with the topic, I'll let you start. What made you want to talk about ethics and magic to begin with?
Well, I think magic raises a good question about moral and ethical behavior, because if you think that this is all psychological games and it's just what you're doing in your own head, then sure, whatever, you're kind of free to do anything you'd like because it stops at the bridge of your nose. And that's cool. There's a freedom to that where it's like, it doesn't matter. If you take the whole hog and say, yeah, magic exists and it totally affects the rest of the world and everyone in it, then you start having questions of like, is it right to do blank, blank, and blank? Particularly when it comes to the idea of curses and like love, I guess.
Well, yeah, those two, if you go look through the people asking questions about like, is it right or wrong, or is it ethical for me to do X, 9 times out of 10, you get either curses or love spells.
Killing and fucking.
Killing and fucking. Killing and fucking. More human than apple pie. Well, my apple pie. My mom doesn't make apple pie with people anymore. The county was mad about that. I'm from the South, folks. I'm sorry.
That was the worst pie eating contest the state fair ever seen, I tell you what.
Okay, first and foremost, where do we stand on the cursed love spell debate? Are either of those okay? Are they both okay?
I will try to be quick about this. I don't believe in curses. I don't believe that somebody can make bad things happen to me because they're really mad at me and they wave a wand around.
They at least got to come throw some hands, right?
Yeah, but the caveat of that is that I don't believe in them because it's beneficial for me to not believe in them, if that makes sense.
Right. There's not a whole lot of situations where it's beneficial to think that you've been cursed. In fact, the only one I can think of is if you have been cursed.
Yeah. And if it becomes temporarily beneficial, I will totally buy into it. And I will do something spooky to get the curse off of me or whatever. And hopefully that fixes the issue. But by and large, I operate on an idea that nobody's magic can really touch me. So that's not a stance that everybody else takes. It's just mine. And I would go with the other thing on love spells too, is that if somebody wanted me to fall in love with them, good fucking luck. You better have a winning personality and a lovely smile.
I got commitment issues out the ass. You can't magic that shit away.
At the same time, I will say that I met my current beloved because I did something that was supposed to get me around people to hopefully find that. You know what I mean? And I don't consider that an unethical thing. There's nothing unethical about trying to put yourself in the right place at the right time. You could make the argument that if I had known who she was and I wanted her to fall in love with me and I did something, maybe that would be fucked up. I think it comes from the idea of violence and robbing someone of their autonomy. And ultimately, those two also come back to the idea of thinking you know what's best for other people or thinking you know what's best for the world at large.
When we were talking about this earlier, you used an example that was like, you have a friend that's like, is having a rough time and you decide what they really need is like a better job. And they get that better job after you go talk to all the demons in the true grimoire and say, come on, he's a good guy. Check out his resume. Just help him out. And he gets the job, and then he's miserable because he's worked all the time and he's super stressed. And even though he has money now and he's doing better by a certain metric, his life is worse off because of it. Right? And it's the same problem as what we're really getting at with curses and love spells, is that you're taking on the authority to just say, all right, this is what needs to happen to this fucker.
Exactly. In the same way that if you did a love spell where you think this person will be so much happier with me, you're making these decisions that you know what is best for other people or the world. And that gets to the heart of it. You can either have the idea that my will and what I want are the important things, or you can think of other people.
Right.
Manly P. Hall had a thing, a lecture called Secret Powers and Why You Shouldn't Use Them. And it fell back on a lot of metaphysical and philosophical justifications for why you should and shouldn't do certain things. And the big difference as far as chaos magic is that chaos magic will tell you that all of that is arbitrary nonsense and you should just do what you want to do. There's no black magic, white magic distinction.
The police sirens went off as you finished saying that, and I think that's poignant. There's another one. There's something to be said, I think, about the benefit of having a moral compass in this world. And more importantly, for doing your magic. I think it's also important to recognize whatever your particular moral or ethical hangups are contingent on, your experience, your culture, your place in time, your place in history, your class, what have you. All of these things are ultimately very contingent. And while it's very easy, especially as a chaos magician, to succumb to nihilism and just say that nothing matters, nothing is important, I can just be a hedonist and use magic to fulfill my every whim, or I could be like a Ragnar Redbeard, might makes right, and as long as I have the magical ability to do something, I'm gonna fucking do it. I think there's a greater benefit to being able to look at your morals and understand that they are contingent and in some ultimate way arbitrary. So you can actually focus more on what the intent of this sort of moral idea is. That way you don't end up in a situation where the inevitable happens, where hardline morals fail and can't give us a satisfactory answer.
Yeah, you know what? That's a pretty great way of putting it. Is that this isn't a call to everyone abandon their morality and their ethics because it's arbitrary. You don't want to make the mistake of, because something is arbitrary, or because if something only exists as a social convention, that means you don't need it or it can be done away with. I think that is a real issue that people have. They see arbitrary and they think unimportant.
Right. There's no... The fact that you eat a baked potato with a fork is arbitrary, but it has some benefits. You ever get like baked potato under your fingernails? It's gross.
Yeah, totally. There's it's, you know what it is? It's the money thing, right? Where money doesn't really exist. It's all in our heads. And it's like, if you believe that, give me all your money. See how far you get without it
after this.
Yeah. And I understand that there's a greater argument trying to be made there sometimes. But I think to a certain extent, acknowledging that your morals are arbitrary or that your ethics are arbitrary is fine. And it can be great, because if you acknowledge that they are arbitrary, then you can challenge them. You can change them. You can act in accordance. You can act in a different way. without having to come up with a cosmic scoreboard that says this is 100% right all the time and this is 100% bad all the time. You can still say that things like genocide and child abuse are awful while acknowledging that the reason you think that is not because there is the universal referee throwing a red card on.
Right.
Because the minute that you think that you found the objective morality, you're under an obligation to enforce it on everybody. And that's hardly ever been a good thing in history.
Well, of course, that's arbitrary too. Yeah. No. I will go back to the fact that beyond magic, because we've gone almost whole hog into the discussion of ethics as opposed to strictly in a magical sense. But as far back as Antigone, we see the struggle of man for justice in the world, of where obligations and conventions and the law all coincide with what is true justice, right? Charles Baumbach has a Heidegger book. Oh no, he's talking about Heidegger again. No, it has a book called Taking the Poetic Measure of Justice, and in it they talk about how we're always sort of yearning towards justice rather than ever reaching it. That our strive to be ethical is a striving to reach what we actually view as the just, but we're wholly incapable of ever being able to really reach it.
Doesn't Cornel West have a similar thing about truth?
Right, and it's entirely relevant to chaos magic in the same way.
Yeah, it's the thing you strive for. And I think that while nothing is true, everything is permitted, Hassani Saba, old man of the mountain, this is the end times, you can do whatever you want, nothing means anything. While I feel like that is a totally valid and in many cases correct view, it has to be tempered with the idea that that isn't the end of the discussion. If nothing is true, then you have to, you know what? Maybe it's easy enough to say that nothing is true, everything is permitted. It's another thing to try to live like that, because the only way that you figure out something isn't true is to try to keep striving for it. To keep in the same way that the Buddhist would tell you that if you keep unearthing the things that are unreal, eventually the only thing left will be what is truly real. I think that is kind of the idea, is that it's very easy to go, all right, yeah, all this stuff's arbitrary. It's another thing to go, all right, if all this is arbitrary, then that means this, and this, and keep testing that and working with it. And I think I'm getting a little bit into a ramble at this point, so I'm going to drop it and let you go.
Well, I'll just take it back to magic then. As a magician or a witch or a warlock, because you made the pact with Barthazal last episode, what guides you as a magician personally at this point? As far as ethical as far as ethical action.
Man, that is a tough one. I think ultimately I have certain things that I want to happen.
It was at this moment that he knew he fucked up.
You know what? This is God, this is gonna sound terrible. I've got certain things that I want to happen, and I'll do everything in my power to make sure they happen. That's it. That's literally it, is that if you really want something, you're willing to throw so much stuff to the wayside. But I think also I have a baseline of, even though I know that it's arbitrary and there's no one, I won't be punished for my misdeeds and my sins and this, that, and the other. There's nobody who's going to slap me on the wrist at the end of all of this, or even it's not like the universe is going to turn around and spank me because I did something bad.
No bad rebirth.
Yeah, or even like the Western idea of karma, where you did something bad, so something bad happens to you. You know, I don't believe in that stuff, but I still, at the end of the day, there's certain things that I think of that I don't want to do that to somebody, and that's really all it comes down to. Is it's like, well, that's pretty shitty to do to a person, so I'm not going to do it. Being a bad person makes me feel bad. So
I mean, there's worse things. I know plenty of people that are bad people that feel great about it.
I wish I was one of them. I really do.
Not me. I wish I was a bee.
Oh, yeah, so you could play.
Yeah, bees can play, but it's not ethical to
Yeah.
play as a bee. You got to strive for the hive.
You have to strive for the hive. It must be true because it rhymes.
Yep. See, nothing is true, everything is permitted doesn't rhyme, so it's probably a lie.
I think it might have rhymed in the original language. Whatever
William Burroughs wrote it in.
No.
Burroughs made that whole thing up. None of that happened.
He got it from Alamut.
There's no, where is it? Point it on a map.
Maps are arbitrary. The map is not the territory.
Does it rhyme? This is, I like this paradigm. This is a good one.
The paradigm where Dr. Seuss holds all the truths.
It rhymed. It works.
Oh.
Okay, all right.
Unless someone like you cares an awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not.
See, now we're back to ethical action. Good job. Okay. And with that, I suppose we move on to our most beloved segment of CMN. What's in the news?
Fantastic.
Do you want to invoke the news again?
What's in the news?
Oh, Lord. Okay, let's see what we got this week. Dems moving quickly to push major policy change through Congress before GOP takes House. Was anyone surprised by the election results?
Okay, I understand that we have some non-American listeners here. I'm not going to get into the explanation of what happened, but maybe we should also do a little bit better about not making this firmly like American stuff. However, no, I was honestly surprised it didn't end worse for the Democrats.
I mean, yeah. Babylon is burning, folks. Not really. Babylon just keeps going on forever. That's the real issue of capital.
Yeah. I mean, as far as them trying to rush policies in before things get fucked over, I mean,
that's what they all do.
Yeah. It's this thing where you know the guys behind you are about to fuck everything up, so you're going to try to batten down as many hatches as you possibly can. I feel like it's not going to matter. It's not going to do enough. The Supreme Court is so slanted in the direction of conservatism at this point that just about any law that they don't want on the books can get overturned. So what's it matter? And if the Democrats had been willing to be more than middle of the road liberal democracy, maybe we could have gotten something done. But it's the very plain thing that Democrats only operate on the idea that we're not the Republicans, so you should vote for us. That's all they really ever have to offer. And then meanwhile, the Republicans, all they have to offer is we're not eating children. It's like, it's just I don't really have much, because it's like, I have no love for the Republicans. Don't get me wrong. I think by and large, they're monsters. And the things that they want are completely at odds with the things that I want. But the Democrats are also a complete fucking failure too. I know that in and of itself isn't a controversial statement. If you say, man, both parties suck, most people are going to be like, yeah, you're totally right. It's just when I say what I think my solutions are, that's when people start bristling.
Right. Well, I always go back to Chris Catrone's actually I can't remember if I heard Chris Catrone say it. I don't remember if he was quoting someone else, but America has two parties that are both right wing. That's all it really comes down to. I don't think either of the parties have any scruples about who their masters are, and it's mammon.
Yeah, absolutely. They worship capital. That's what they're about. If you tell anybody, Republican, Democrat, socialist, crazed fascist, and you say, you know what really runs our political system is money, every one of them is going to nod and be like, man, you're so right. I completely agree with you. It's just what they do. What everyone does after that statement is what determines what their real ideology is.
Well, it also comes down to that sort of faith in institutions to function as they're supposed to properly function.
Yeah, and none of us have that anymore.
No, we all still go through all the motions, but we none of us believe anything functions the way it's supposed to.
Exactly. If you ask anyone whether or not they vote, whether or not they engage in any sort of political activity, if you ask them, do you think that the government represents the will of the people? They're all going to laugh. No, of course not. But we all still wake up every day and keep trudging along, you know?
Mm-hmm. That's the long and short of it, I suppose. What else we got?
And now you know the rest of the story.
Oh no, Paul Harvey's ghost is a very powerful spirit. You can't fuck with him.
Next headline.
I was looking and I realized just Trump announced his candidacy again, so the headlines are all flooded with that shit.
Again, very American centric, but I'll just go
well,
ahead
that's
and
what
say
I'm getting
like,
at. But even the world news is flooded with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the problem is that nobody took Trump seriously the first time he ran, and then he won. So, are we going to repeat our mistakes, or are we going to actually do anything? Or, I mean, I'm sure statistically speaking, if there's enough people listening to this, somebody listening is going to be like, yeah, that's definitely a good thing. We should want him to win.
Right. I'm sure somebody does.
I don't have anything good to say about the Trump administration or Donald Trump as a person. I think that it's a double-edged sword because there's the idea of if we ignore him and act like there's nothing, like it doesn't matter, we might repeat what happened last time. But at the same time, giving him all the media attention probably isn't going to help either. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
just a wait and see thing at this point. I mean, we've still got some time before we really need to worry about, well, I don't want to say it like that, but the next presidential election is a ways off, is all I'll say. So
yeah, but get ready for it because it's going to start ramping up. It's like Christmas. Election season has taken over all the other holidays.
Yes, Virginia, there is an electoral process.
Okay. What else we got? What World Cup fans can't do in Qatar.
What can't they do?
Drink, apparently.
Be gay? Oh. Drink, be gay, have fun.
Oh, man. Let's see what else we got. Religious restrictions. Anyone criticizing Islam can be criminally prosecuted. Public speech is also limited. This is literally just saying that, like, don't do Western liberal things in theocratic Middle Eastern countries.
You know, and here's the question, right? if we're talking about morality is arbitrary, here's a good test for everyone. If I acknowledge that morality and ethics and everything else, that like these are arbitrary guidelines that don't really hold up anywhere, why does that still make my skin crawl? Why does that still make me go, dude, I never want to step foot in Qatar if that's really how it is? You know? I can't say that Islam is fucking stupid as hell. Like what? And I don't think Islam is, it's not that I think Islam is stupid as hell. It's the fact that like you have a law saying that I can't openly criticize Islam. You know, Christianity predominates most of the West, and I talk smack about that.
Well, but Christianity is definitely on the decline.
I don't think Islam is that far off.
Well, they maintain governments. Christianity can't do that anymore. The Vatican's a shit show.
Yeah, but if you maintain governance by lopping off the heads of anybody that disagrees with you, what's that say?
That you're Saudi Arabia and you'll be protected by the U.S. regardless.
Yeah, the Biden administration is going to tell you that it's okay. It's fine that he killed that reporter. Whatever. Who cares?
Yeah.
We want to kill reporters too, but we get mad at us. we have to make it look like you guys did it.
We'll get ratioed on Twitter. Oh man. The world generates so much data that new unit measurements were created to keep up.
Gajillion.
Gajillion. Oh my lord. The yottagram, 24 zeros, was the largest prefix in the metric system before the new addition. Now the Earth's mass can be said to be 6 ronograms rather than 6,000 yottagrams. The sun can be said to be about 2,000 quetagrams rather than 2 million yottagrams. They're just making this shit up.
Exactly. That's what they're saying. I mean, hey, that's actually a neat theme if we're talking about arbitrary, is that all metrics and measurements are arbitrary, aren't they? I remember actually a strangely eye-opening thing was when a friend of mine said that, you know, for a while, the idea is that there was a piece of metal in the middle of a building that was a pound, and that all of our measurements of a pound came from measuring against that thing. It's like, this is what they say, that this is a pound, so we're all on the same boat that this is a pound. You know? And the same way that the effects of time exist, but our measurements of time are completely arbitrary. That also goes into the thing of, why do we have measurements that are arbitrary? It's like, well, because we need something. We need to, and maybe that's the same thing with morals and ethics, is that, yeah, they're arbitrary, but we need something to conduct ourselves. So we just got to go with it.
I'm with it.
These are much better headlines than usual, by the way.
No, they're not. They're actually much worse in a way, I think.
Okay.
U.S. Supreme Court. See, I mean, it's just America. Like, America has just taken over all other news. Like, I'm literally at The Guardian at the moment, and I'm seeing nothing but America.
I mean, that's also the problem of, you're an American in America using a browser that has a lot of metadata associated with it that says you're in America. So they're going to try to show you American news.
I suppose so.
But, you know, that's
well,
fine.
here's one that'll make you go like, it's the parrot thing again. 2 Canadian men charged with shooting animals at safari park.
I mean, yeah, it is the parrot thing, but it's also really sad. Like, why would you want to do that?
Breaking into Park Omega in Quebec and killing 3 wild boar and an elk.
They're just little critters trying to live their lives, and you want to be an asshole. That's terrible.
Oh, wow. No, never mind. Quebec's got a lot of great news coming out of it right now. Quebec man charged with terrorism over alleged Haiti coup plot.
What? A coup. A coup in Haiti.
Well, you heard about the Haitian president being assassinated a little while back now, right?
Yeah, but is he like taking credit for that, or is he like
No, apparently
Is he like,
was.
man,
he
you know
was,
what?
He was gonna do it, and then someone else did it.
Why? What was his motive? Like what political standing or military power did this individual Quebec man have that he felt like he could actually...
What is alleged is that Mr. Nicholas actually traveled to Haiti and to other Central and South American countries. We're talking about multiple countries in order to recruit, finance, and acquire some weapons for his armed revolution. He not only wanted to overthrow the government in place, but also seize power. Dude, some guy in Quebec was just literally about to take over Haiti. He's like, fuck it, man, I'm doing it. He was willing to give everything to accomplish the things that he wanted. You should be proud of him. He's a good magician in your eyes.
I mean, he absolutely is.
Oh, wow, this is even
but
better.
No. But here, let's. Okay, go on.
Nicholas told CBC Radio on Thursday that the charges were untrue and claimed that they were the result of lies spread by a former lover who contacted police in Levi's.
Well, okay. My last breakup wasn't stellar, but neither one of us ratted the other one out to any kind of government agency about like alleged terrorist action. So that's pretty great. I mean, maybe I should not be as bitter about it. You know, you didn't send the NSA after me. So Jesus Christ.
You must have loved me.
Hold on. What if that's true? Sorry. What if that is absolutely true where it's just like,
break up with me, will you?
Sheila, why would you tell them that I was trying to take over Haiti? I was drunk trying to brag and impress you, and now you're...
That's great. Okay.
That's radical. That's absolutely radical.
Yeah, that's a pretty wild one. I like that. We need more. Like, fuck. Seriously, fuck Florida man at this point. Quebec man's killing it.
Let this be a lesson to everyone, you know? You may feel like something is impossible. You may feel like that you're too small in this world. But the fact is that at any moment, you are free to do any crazy radical thing you want. Just don't get caught.
Oh, Jesus.
Just don't break up with the girl until after you've invaded the Capitol.
Don't break up with her till you're in the presidential palace. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un reveals daughter at ballistic missile test.
Reveals like we didn't know that she existed?
Pictures show dictator viewing an ICBM launch site with girl whose existence had never been confirmed before.
Oh,
she looks like she's like a teenager, maybe an older preteen.
Wow.
I thought this was like Kim Jong-un just had a baby and was like, everybody check out my baby at the missile launch.
No, what we're hearing is that he had a daughter this whole time and nobody knew. God, dude, that's so bizarre. Isn't it weird that we just couldn't... You know, I mean, North Korea is a big deal all over the world because they're this weird unknown element that we could totally go nuts at any point and just like start a huge conflict.
Yeah, and we don't even know if this guy, we need to send this guy a Father's Day card.
Yeah, exactly. We didn't know that this guy had a daughter for over a decade, presumably.
I mean, yeah, when did Kim Jong-il die?
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting of like, there's known knowns and there's known unknowns and then there's unknown unknowns.
That's her name. She's unknown unknown.
Oh boy, that's
unknown
my favorite
Ong-un.
But I guess it goes back to the arbitrariness thing too, where it's
is
like,
it arbitrary that he had a daughter and not a son?
Well, yeah, but maybe not the arbitrariness, but the ungroundedness of everything is that you can find out weird pieces of information that will totally flip your understanding of the world, and it will make you realize that what you thought you knew was at best built on shifting sands.
Mm-hmm. At any moment, new revelations can come upon you. You just got to be willing to look for them, I suppose.
Well, you don't have to be looking for them. They'll
fuck you up.
They'll find you.
Former U.S. billionaire sentenced to 11 years in jail. Theranos founder Elizabeth Holmes will also have to pay a $400 million fine. Did you hear about Elizabeth Holmes and Theranos? Theranos? I don't remember how you pronounce it.
Give me just a sec. I'm sorry.
So yeah, Elizabeth Holmes, she was essentially going around being like, I've revolutionized blood testing. It's super low cost and quick now. And it was all a lie. It was complete fabrications and bullshit.
Yeah, this woman. So she finally got her comeuppance in 11 years, is what you're saying?
Yeah, 11 years, $400 million fine. But even so, and I guess the only victims were investors, thing, right?
Yeah, but that doesn't make it okay either.
No, it doesn't. But it's interesting to see that when the capitalist it's interesting to note that when the capitalist class gets stepped on within their own ranks, then stuff gets
a problem.
Yeah, then it's a problem. It takes years of anger and outrage and horrible things to get Jeffrey Epstein killed in prison and then put Ghislaine Maxwell on trial and just so they can have a head. But and I know it's been years. I know the Holmes thing has taken years too, but 11 years and a huge fine for defrauding people.
And who knows if she'll actually even serve all of that. She probably won't.
They never do at this point. That's sort of how the justice system works, I suppose, at this rate.
No faith in institutions anymore.
Nope.
I suppose we could talk about, I mean, we joke about the con man and magician being the same thing, but what is there to say other than
get good and don't get caught? If you're going to do a con that obviously does, if you're going to sell people something that doesn't actually exist, you got to skip town before they start asking for it.
Suppose so.
She needed to have a trick like the alchemist, right? She should have been like, all right, now here's your efficient low-cost testing. Yeah, exactly. Here's your efficient low-cost blood testing machine. But you got to make sure that none of the people operating it think about purple cows.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it'll cost 30 times as much and will break every 5 minutes.
Right. I think ultimately this is interesting because on previous episodes, I was very enthusiastic and joking about, oh yeah, totally, this is great magic because they conned a bunch of people. But at the same time, it goes back to the idea of, is that a proper ethical or moral thing to do? And I don't think it is.
If nothing else, we can say it's not good magic because she got caught, as always.
You got caught, so obviously you weren't that good.
You lost. You lost, Elizabeth. You're a loser, Elizabeth.
All right. Well,
we have one bit of occult news to touch on. That's not the most relevant thing, but it's kind of shitty, and it's about someone that is almost universally praised in the occult today.
Sure. Go on.
Well, the lovely Jake Stratton-Kent, who, as many people know, had a stroke a little while ago and is still recovering from that, from what I have gathered. They had a rumor of their death just running around on social media.
They hit him with the Betty White.
Yep. I'm not dead. No, they hit him with the Bam Margera. I'm not dead, brother, but I miss you.
No,
you know what I'm talking about, right?
Twain.
Oh, yeah, right, yeah. The rumors of my death have been greatly exaggerated.
Sirens in the background.
What's the
Roadside
motivation?
Symphony.
What's the motivation for something like that, though? Other than the usual occult fodder of being a petty asshole about something, right?
I suppose there's always the possibility that somebody just got bad information and then it proliferated.
But it had to start somewhere.
Yeah, it could have just been somebody who maybe somebody heard he had a stroke and assumed he died.
Oh, I suppose so. That's always possible.
Yeah.
Information breakdown is a very real thing.
Well, I guess it's also that social media thing too. Bad information can spread very quickly, especially when it doesn't seem to have a quick motivation of why would someone lie about this?
Remember when you had to go to the library or the local occult bookstore to get bad information?
Remember when you had to talk to your friend's older brother to get bad information about reality?
Yeah, man,
Marilyn
girls really
Manson
like it.
Did what?
How many ribs?
Yeah, it's just if this was somebody's idea of a joke, then I guess it's kind of shitty.
Yeah, the man's struggling with shit right now. I don't know if they're still taking donations. I know they were at one point, I think. If I'm wrong about that, then I'm wrong. But at any rate, I know they're struggling with that. They don't need... Well, who knows? They might have got a good chuckle out of it. They might have just been like, they think I'm dead. But I'm the greatest necromancer of my age, so I'm going to raise my own corpse.
Well, at the end of the day, he's still alive and kicking, and if he is taking donations, maybe we can plug it for anybody who doesn't know, and you can make that decision on your own whether or not you want to give him money. But you
should. They're great. If you haven't read any of their work, I highly recommend it. The True Grimoire is ace. Geosophia ain't bad either, but I haven't read all of that one from what I remember. Either way, they're cool. They're still alive. Don't tell people that don't say that people are dead. Do we have any more occult news to actually talk about?
Brief aside, because we talked about Visconti and Gordon Wife's beef. Visconti is also squabbling with Alan Chapman about stuff. And I in my desire to not involve myself in weird petty stuff, I didn't really look at what caused it, but I know they're fighting about something, and maybe this speaks to Visconti's problem of just wanting to fight with people.
At least Gordon White seems like sort of reasonable to fight with at this point, because I was talking to a friend of the show about this, just how Gordon White let me down by becoming even the deplorable stuff about COVID aside, like Rune Soup used to like kind of mean something, and now it's literally just like, here's a list of all the people that were mean to me on Twitter. It just makes you feel bad because you're like, I like this person.
Fault.
I liked your work.
It's your fault for putting someone on a pedestal.
True facts.
Yeah.
That's the way the cookie crumbles, I guess. Or no, that's the way the idol crumbles, I guess.
I suppose that really does go back to the point we were trying to make with that episode. It's hard to talk about occult news, like specifically occult news, because so much of it is weird, petty bickering. And do we want to be the gossip muckraking of so-and-so is fighting with so-and-so? And I'm not really interested.
If we were gonna do that, we'd at least pick people that were more relevant than fucking magicians on the internet, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's niche. It's a niche topic for niche people. The lunatic fringe, very much.
We are the knights who say niche. I'm sorry.
Better than the Knights of Chaos.
Well, we ran through the headlines there. That's your news for the week. So everyone knows that this is the penultimate section of CMN. What are we talking about today? We have a book, don't we?
Oh. Yeah.
You
and
always sound so surprised. Like every time I say, we're going to talk about this thing. And you're like, oh, okay, we're doing that. We plan these episodes.
Hey, you remember that book that you suggested we talk about? Oh, yeah, I did do that, didn't I?
No, it's way less optimistic than that. It's like, fuck, I said I was going to do that.
Well, I mean, and to be fair, it is kind of an interesting, it's an interesting book that we've got to talk about right now. It came out, I think, June, and it just went under my radar until now. It's the latest release, as far as I know, from Peter J. Carroll.
Oh, so it's actually Carroll written. I thought you said it was interviews.
Well, I think it's a little bit of both, I guess, because it's Carroll and, oh man, I'm terrible. Ian Blumberg-Enge.
Okay.
Is interviewing him. And it's a series of multiple interviews where it's broken down by question. So it's interview 1, which is something like 40 questions. Then it's interview 2, which is probably another 40 questions. From what I've skimmed, it's actually pretty interesting. But considering what we were talking about just a second ago, the idea of not putting people on a pedestal, this very much is like blowing Peter Carroll for being so great.
Is it like the Chris Hyatt interviews where he's got like people that he is like trying to work with at the same time? And he's like, well, part of your work with, the Reiki and body therapy is going to be filming me talking to you about these things real quick.
I don't know about that. I think it's just very natural to want to reach out to these sort of people that you view as the greats and be like, hey, well, how about I interview you? And then I guess those two really hit it off because it materialized into this book. The book itself is called Interview with a Wizard. It's available right now on Amazon, Kindle, blah, blah, blah. If you're interested, totally pick it up. It might be worth something. I will say that it does. And I guess it makes sense that when you're interviewing somebody that you think is cool and you're writing a whole book about if you're writing a whole book and the motivation is somebody should read this book, of course you're going to act like this person's really awesome. But it's funny because we spent a lot of time talking about the Knights of Chaos thing and saying like, this is some absolute fucking nonsense. So now we're
Peter
talking
Carroll
about
fucking up, and now we're Peter Carroll fucking up to, man, Peter Carroll, great.
Yeah. But I do think that there's probably something good in all of this. I did buy it, so I guess I put my money towards supporting somebody that I just called a loser. A couple, of course, what leg do I have to stand on as the nameless co-host of a podcast that just talks about magic? Who, maybe I'm the loser here. Maybe we're all losers.
Maybe the real friends were the losers we made along the way.
All right. Well,
the idea that I had for this segment that I didn't tell you, because it's broken down by question, I think we should go through and answer these questions and save Ian the hassle of having to find the two greatest living coyotes in the biz and interview us for a book later.
Interview with two yahoos.
Oh, that's the episode name. Great. We haven't had one of those
that's
yet.
Fantastic. But then people will think it's actually an interview.
No, because I label all the interviews and they have actual people that people want to talk about.
Okay, well here, how about I read the preface from Peter Carroll? I won't read the one from Ian because it's a bit long.
Because it's just like, because he's got Peter's cock in his mouth.
No, well, he typed it, so there's a lot of typos because he only had one hand. The other one was firmly
Dear Penthouse
grabbing-
Forum, I didn't think it could happen to me.
Okay.
But here
So-
I was being initiated into the 9th degree.
All right, preface by Peter J. Carroll. Ian Blumberg contacted me advertising himself as a budding journalist of the esoteric and asked for an email interview. WTFN, I asked myself. And we both got carried away with the project, which reached book length after many months of daily exchanges. Herewith the results, which meanders all over the place from biography to magical theory to politics, religion, quantum science, sex magic, economics, sociology, magic practice, travelogue, and adventure, to business, education, ufology, philosophy, and cosmology. Perhaps we have between us invented the literary equivalent of a late night chat show series. I would recommend reading one interview per evening. It sounds a lot like this podcast.
Hell no, we would never be one per evening. It's hard enough doing this weekly.
It absolutely is.
We're like the Saturday Night Live of the Chaos Magic talk show community.
Ugh, boy. Shitty monologues included.
Yep. So, is that the whole thing?
That is it. Yeah. Interview 1. Maybe we could start with your current project, an alternative theory to the Big Bang. Is it possible to give a basic description? What is wrong or missing from the Big Bang? How did you get into this project? I'm gonna fucking skip that one. What?
Well, I was going to say, do you have
No.
anything to say about the Big Bang? All I know about the Big Bang is Howard Bloom told me that it's not the same thing. It's not the Big Bang you think it is. It has something to do with a torus, which is like a donut. It's the cosmic donut.
Ich bin ein Cosmic Berliner. I am a cosmic donut.
Okay, so get to the first question that's actually good.
All right. I will note that right at the end of this question, he says, nothing has ultimate truth. Everything remains possible, which is an interesting rephrasing of what we were talking about earlier.
I like that.
Me too, actually. Yeah.
Let's steal it.
Yeah.
Let's say that we came
Sure.
up with it. Edit this whole part out.
All right.
Do, 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 Are none of the questions good? There's like 40 of them.
They all blend into each other. Can you just like legit give me a sec? I'm sorry.
8 hours later.
Here's the thing: is that most of the first 15 questions all sort of go into that, or the first 16 questions all start from the Big Bang thing into this new working theory, and a lot. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying that they're all predicated on the previous question. I mean, there are a lot of jokes that people have made over the years about like chaos magic came out of Peter Carroll's bad understanding of quantum mechanics. And I'm not saying that that's it now. I'm not saying that he hasn't gotten better or anything like that. I personally don't like mixing quantum mechanics with this understanding of magic because I feel like neither one of them work very well together. You're not making magic better. You're making quantum mechanics worse.
Well, I don't believe in quantum mechanics because I've never been in a situation where believing in quantum mechanics was beneficial to me.
That cat is dead. That's all I'm going to say.
It's in a box already. You've just fucked it up.
Did you poke holes in the box? No, he's dead already. What's it matter?
Fucking dead.
Thanks, Schrodinger.
I'm going on break.
Okay, but question 17. How did you get into ceremonial magic?
Ooh. What was your first experience with ceremonial magic?
That would be, let me think. I tried to call up Prometheus. That would be the first one I ever did.
Nice. What did you do?
Yeah, and Dark room, fire going. I drew up like an ornate sigil thing that I had cobbled together from a bunch of different stuff. I just, a lot of fancy words by myself trying to call up an entity and see if he would deal with me.
How'd it go?
It was interesting. I'll say that much. It wasn't the stupendous dude shows up in front of you and is like, what do you want sort of thing. But there was some interesting experiences that went with it. I don't want to get into them too much. It definitely isn't like a crowning achievement, and it definitely didn't turn me into a believer when it was done, but it was interesting. And even looking back on it in hindsight, the idea that my first experience would be trying to call up the guy that gave fire to man, kind of neat.
Nice.
And then the fact that Prometheus Rising was one of the books that came to me and really got me screwing with my own head in ways that would be considered magical feels like a neat synchronicity.
Definitely is.
Yeah. What about you?
Oh, I remember it clearly. I had just gotten into ceremonial magic because I was reading Robert Anton Wilson as well, and Peter Carroll and all these sorts of things, and I'd found out what the Golden Dawn was and Thelema was, and I was like, well, fuck it. Peter Carroll's telling me anything works as long as I believe in it and just do it. I'll go do something like one of those sorts of things. Did all the things. I put the various stars on the ground, and I had all the various angel names written out, and I had all the instruments that I'd spent time making and getting and doing all that sort of stuff. And I went through this, I think it was an invocation of Horus or some Egyptian deity. I don't even remember which one that was. But I remember doing all the stuff and getting absolutely fucking bunk. And I was like, this is all bullshit. This is just bullshit. I just wasted my time. But later rereading Liber Null, and by later I mean like a couple days later.
Got it.
You remember the bit on ceremonial magic in Liber Null where he discusses invoking Mars, and he's like, get a bearskin rug and a leopard thing and a sword,
a metal helmet and a gun
and start running around saying, I'm Horus, me
drugs.
Me Horus, I Horus. Yes.
So
I was like, fuck it, I'll do something like that. And I got a red light bulb and I set up in my parents' garage that we had converted into a studio, and everything was red. I put a chair, and I put like it was a hunk of wood or cardboard or something like that I had painted this, what I viewed as a martial sort of entity on it. And I had a sword that I had put inscriptions on in Sharpie because I knew I could wipe it off afterwards.
Don't want to mess up my good sword.
Yeah, and this is my going out sword. And I put on I think it was Boris. It was some just noise rock kind of thing. Just lots of loud, like, and feedback and shit. Very long, very droney. And I smoked a cigarette super fast. And I had all the instruments that I had from the previous thing. And I picked up the wand and I waved it around. And I was just chanting, I, Horus, me, Horus, I am Horus. And I found some Greek for Ares that I threw in there as well. And I just got into it, just as into it as I possibly could. And something about the way the chair was set up and the fact that I had taken my glasses off made the chair and the picture that I have turn into what I can only describe as like a demon of Gabora of the highest kind of quality. It was just like everything about Mars. This was war and violence and restriction incarnate. just sitting before me. And I was...
I don't know if I know I've told you the Prometheus story before, but I don't know if I mentioned the fact that I also had a chair set up.
I was just using it because I needed something to put it on.
No, I had a chair set up like he was going to sit there.
Oh, nice.
Between me and the fire, you know?
Did he sit in the chair?
I mean, like I said, my results weren't nearly as dramatic because, like, I think this was very, very early in my career because I didn't even know who Robert Anton Wilson was when I did that. So that synchronicity was like something much, much later. But I think the present, as far as what I experienced, there was definitely the presence in the chair at a certain point.
I see.
But I guess that's kind of funny because I hadn't thought about that there was indeed a chair that I had set up between me. You know, there's me, there's the fire, and then and it wasn't like a big fire. It was the kind of fire that you could have in your house at the time, you know, without like setting your smoke detectors off or anything. But it's me, there's the fire, and then there's the chair where I'm expecting him to show up. And it worked. It worked enough that I was like, okay, let me try. And I think that's a lot of what my early experiences was that like getting little things that were like, this is enough that I feel like I can do better, rather than going, oh, this is complete nonsense and I'm not going to try it again. Do we want to, now that we're get back to this interview, do you want to hear Carroll's answer?
Right. Yeah. The only thing I was going to say was, and that after doing that, I was like, okay, let's go back to the high ceremonial magic with all the really strict rules and do it again. And it worked. So I think it was more of getting over my own disbelief that I could have some weird experience.
Okay, totally. Yeah. I think that might be one of those things that is really difficult to challenge, is that especially early on, it's that feeling of like putting limits on what can and can't happen. I guess that's psychic censor, right? To get back to Carroll. So Carroll's answer was, for me, it began as a discipline for carrying out results-based magic in a formal way so that I paid minute attention to what I did and nothing got left out. Later, when I did stuff on my own, I tended to simplify the procedures to what seemed essential for me. Later still, when I started setting up groups for collective conjurations, I found the ritual structure useful for coordinating and synchronizing everyone's efforts. However, by then I had simplified a lot of the traditional rituals to emphasize the effective, important bits. And then the follow-up question was, chaos magic created out of a need for a better working model? And it said, yes, indeed, a lot of the old systems remain full of unnecessary beliefs and faux historical mythology. Magic continually reinvents itself and then pretends to have an ancient hidden knowledge. You only really need intent and imagination and a few techniques for putting the mind into an extremely excited or very quiescent state. You can dress it up with any beliefs or symbols that appeal.
Just to talk about that then, do you agree with that sentiment still?
Do I agree with that? Do I agree? Well, do I agree that chaos magic is a better working model? Yeah, absolutely. If you know what you're doing.
I was going to say, to a point, I think that a lot of the quote unquote unnecessary aspects of traditional magic are entirely necessary. I've done my own experiments with trying to simplify things, and a lot of the times you won't get any better results from making things simpler. A lot of the times you got to really go through the whole PGM and fucking get all the things in the way that it's supposed to be done, do all the ritual purifications. Otherwise, it's just not going to work at all. And I don't know if that's just my own personal experience. As far as whether that constitutes ancient knowledge in any sort of like romantic sort of way, as opposed to just historical, I mean, you know, like it's ancient knowledge in that it's old as fuck. But whether it's like connected to the perennial philosophy or whatever is a whole other fucking can of worms I don't give a shit about.
I think that the notion that magic reinvents itself and then claims to be much older than it is totally that is a demonstrable thing. You can look at Crowley saying that we are the reconstruction of the Sumerian tradition or anything else like that, where it's like there's definitely this idea that they go like, yeah, we're or Kenneth Grant talking about like this, this current goes back to ancient Egypt and this, that, and
Oh,
the
well,
other.
I mean, the Corpus Hermeticum is that.
Absolutely.
That's the entire
absolutely.
belief, is that everyone thought it was the real ancient super Egyptian real goddamn teachings of Herbies the love thrice born
of Herbie Hancock.
Yeah. No, but but everyone thought it was the real thing, and they're like, oh no, we've done textual analysis. We've done textual analysis. It's just a late Hellenic work, you silly Billy. But that doesn't matter.
No. I think that there is the constant need to reinterpret and reimagine and rebuild old things. And if you have to justify it as the rediscovery of ancient knowledge, so be it. I think that in and of itself is an unnecessary step at this point. And maybe that's something that I was going to get to about the ceremonial thing. I think you can definitely simplify a lot of this stuff, but you have to get good at it first. You have to do all of the stuff. You have to follow the rules before you know where you can take shortcuts.
Right. I won't go off into the Dreyfus model of skill acquisition, but it's a similar sort of thing. You have to have a whole lot of rules when you're learning how to do something, and when you've mastered it, then you don't have to pay attention to the rules anymore.
Yeah, 100%.
Right. Okay, so next question.
I just dropped my phone and it shattered into 1,000 pieces. 19. Do you think it was important that you created a working model for tuning and hacking your inner space before moving on to modeling the cosmos? Interesting. Now that goes back to the earlier things he's talking about of reimagining the Big Bang and talking about space travel and all of that. But the idea of a working model for your inner before you work on your outer, there might be something useful in that idea of before you do any of the weird spooky stuff, you need to get good at things like meditation and ruling your or you know what? Liebernull has that statement about any modicum of control over yourself is greater than a whole host of control over the external world. I don't know if I 100% agree with that, but there is something to be said about if you're not in tune with your own nonsense and everything that's going on inside of you as a person, then what does it matter what you can do out in the world? And that's not even a magical thing, but it's sort of that idea of you can have all the money in the world or all sorts of great things going on in your life, but if you're miserable because there's something inside you that you haven't dealt with, you're just going to be miserable.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Well, I can't, but I can agree with the sentiment of it.
Well, we're talking when we talk about the idea of internal world and external world, you start
I fall apart immediately because there's no difference. There's no internal, there's no external. There's only being in the world.
Right. His answer's kind of interesting. Magic did wonders for my imagination and my arrogance. The practice of stilling the mind and the imagination has the peculiar effect of making it work much more powerfully afterwards. Identifying myself as a wizard somehow obliged and inspired me to attempt extraordinary things. Absolutely great answer as far as I'm concerned.
Especially in line with the ethical conversation we had earlier.
Yeah, I mean, or Alan Moore's thing of one must be careful declaring themselves a magician. You might wake up and discover that is exactly what you are. There's something to be said about that idea of going back to what we were talking about at the beginning, where if you do declare and make this idea that there is a valid reality to all of the spooky woo-woo stuff you do, you're obligated to do something with it. And that can mean doing something of great merit or doing something extraordinary or whatever. But I feel like you can't acknowledge that this stuff works and not feel like you have a certain level of responsibility with it.
100% there. I have a whole article about it that's gonna go up on the site fairly soon, probably after this episode. But I use the R word? At any rate, next question.
Okay. Just looking at the answer here, it's going to that's why I'm going. I was going to skip this, but I read the answer and it was like, oh, okay. Are the theatrical aspects of ritual magic as important after decades of ceremonial work? And his response is the high years of large magical orders and mass interest in hardcore occult activities seem to have passed for various cultural reasons. So much occultism now consists of individuals working alone and communicating mainly online. Nevertheless, I still keep my hand in the local druid grove once a month. We still use robes, staffs, candles, and circles. Now, I think what Carroll is getting at is that when he was doing his IoT stuff and most of the others, he was in a period of large occult revival, which we're heading back into. I think while he's absolutely right that it's mostly people working by themselves and then chit-chatting with folks online, I think we're going to see a lot of this stuff coming back. I mean, even just the things a couple years ago of like mass hexing of Trump or what the hell ever is a leading edge of that sort of thing. You're going to see this stuff come back, and it's going to, history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. So I'm not 100% sure what form it's going to take, but I think it's definitely coming back. And I think his characterization of robes, staffs, candles, and circles, you're describing what a lot of people do in their own homes. So whatever. It is interesting that he said he blames cultural reasons for what happened. What he's probably saying is mostly it's the internet, because the internet makes it really easy to not go outside.
Well, yeah, the proliferate. Well, like we joked about earlier, it used to be if you wanted to get your head filled with gobbledygook, you had to go look for books. And even in the earlier days of the internet, you had to go look for and hope someone typed up the entirety of fucking, some random treatise on magic from some theosophist, right?
Yeah, or like you got the shitty photocopies. And there was only about 20 books in whatever particular group you were in, and everybody worked off of those because it's what they had.
Right. But now you can find anything. You can find the book that some internet rando wrote and then is hawking at everybody, telling you that, like, please read my book. It has the true secret of the Egyptian art of basket humping,
Yeah, I mean, if you want to do the ancient studies of the Anunnaki bumblefucking, like, there's books for it now, and you can just find them in a moment's notice. And even if you can't, I can think of 4 groups off the top of my head that you could go to, say, does anybody have a copy of it? And you will probably find it.
Right. Hell, you can go on r/occult and just ask, like, what's in this book? And then someone will just, like, throw it at you in anger saying, why don't you just read the actual book instead of asking?
That was one of the ones I was thinking of. But the point being that I think the internet has done a lot to proliferate it to the individual and done a lot to make it hard for the individuals to come together in meaningful groups. However, I think we are still on the cusp of that changing. And I'm not saying it's going to be good, but I definitely think we're going to see new groups forming. Now, whether that takes the shape of an order or just small little pockets of meaningful practitioners congregating, I can't say. I know it's coming.
I
And
shake my head entirely at you.
You disagree?
We are too atomized and too hermetically sealed in our own little bubbles of what we're doing as people for that to really ever come back in the same way that it did, even in the occult revival of the 60s.
Well,
I'm sure TikTok witches have their covens. I'm sure that someone is trying to revive the DKMU. I mean, they'll like, oh, we're still here, but like, they're not doing anything fucking nearly as important as what they were doing. The IoT is fucking dead as a doorknob. These people might come together in very small groups to do these sorts of things, but it's part of it is the internet. The other part of it is just late stage capital having completely rendered us incapable of organizing, even for something as unimportant in some value assessment way as magical workings. The best we get now are, hey, everybody, we're all going to get together and hex fucking Donald Trump, or we're going to do a bunch of magic to get the Supreme Court to not overturn Roe v. Wade. And you see a post or a tweet or, whatever, and it'll tell you, do it at this time, at this date, and you just have people in their fucking houses doing whatever goofy fucking shit someone told them to fucking do. And then they forget about it.
Counterpoint, we're watching the labor movement come back. We're watching strikes happen. We're watching people unionize. If it can happen for Starbucks, why can't it happen for Star Children? Star Seeds?
Every man and every woman is a Starbucks.
All right, here, we're going to do my favorite number, 23, and then maybe we'll put a pin in this.
Yeah.
All right. Has anything been lost? Do you...
Yes,
we're gonna
everything.
I lost my keys. No. Number 23. Has anything been lost, do you think, in the way... This is a horribly worded fucking question. Hold on. Has anything been lost, do you think, in that shift away from communal magic? Or is this an evolution? Or maybe just a lull? I don't remember whose idea it was, but I think Wilson introduced me to the idea that it takes a generation for new information to integrate itself into a culture. Take a note that Robert Anton Wilson is mentioned on question 23. Hardy har.
That is pretty funny.
I like to think that is what is currently happening to chaos magic and all sorts of open source spiritual science from that era. Often when I look at any modern book of magic today, I think, well, we are all nearly chaos magicians now. Deep down, I suspect that most neo-pagans believe the gods and goddesses exist as thought forms of our own creation, and that in magical invocation, you basically create spirits as servitors, but they remain no less useful for that. In fact, it makes them more useful and versatile. Unfortunately, the internet gradually brought with it what I call internet-itis, a huge reduction in attention spans, a relentless need for continual novelty, and increasing reluctance to put in sustained work. Plus, in an increasingly noisy medium, the short shout has tended to replace proper debate and genuine exchange of ideas. God damn it, Carroll.
Well, if that's what you're going to tell me, then what was your whole Knights of Chaos bullshit about then, Carroll?
Well,
you're like, we're all older folks. It's fine. We'll actually do it.
Look, hold on. Just give me a second. Because I'm reading that, and now all I'm thinking is, like, God, he's totally right. He's totally on point. Like, what?
Well, I mean, yeah, he just agreed with us, so of course he's right.
Man, that's frustrating in a way. Because he is, and I guess maybe that goes to your cynicalness of saying, oh, I don't think that's going to happen. But I think I think we're going to get better. I think something is going to give, and it's going to take work. It's going to take people being dedicated and actually giving a shit. But I think we're going to do better. I think we are going to see something coming back to the surface that we lost for a minute, you know? And the other thing is that it's worth noting that for the vast majority of practitioners, the last occult revival was either when you were too young to even know what was going on, or you were so young that you barely dipped your toes into this stuff. Or a couple of us weren't even
born
alive.
Yet?
Yeah, weren't even born yet when it started. You know, hell, if you were born in the 90s, that means you were born at the tail end when the last occult revival was dying off. So I guess us weird middle children of the cycle are probably very confused and wondering what the hell can we do. But I think things are actually going to change in exciting ways if you are willing to accept that criticism that old Uncle Pete just threw at you. As much as I think that the Knights of Chaos thing was dumb as shit, he's got a point. And we should own up to that and understand what the hell it means.
Well, to go back to my current paradigm, unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing's going to ever get better. It's not. It's not.
Oh, boy. All right.
And with that, we'll put a pin on the interviews with the wizard.
I think that answer alone has me excited to read the rest of this.
Maybe we'll come back and do another little perusal of questions. Then we can fling our opinions and then be like, did Peter agree with us? Nope, he's back on the shit list.
Yeah, I'd actually like that.
Sweet. As we wind down into the end of the show, we have our nice decompression segment, the little palate cleanser. How goes the work? You owe me a Coke.
Well, for me, I hate to say it, I haven't really gotten to do a whole lot between work sort of ramping up right before we all take some time off for the holidays, and then my beloved getting very, very sick. I just haven't had a whole lot. I will say that I've done some stuff to try to make her feel better, and mixed results, but who knows? Maybe she'll turn around real quick and then it'll be great. But she's not dying or anything. She's just sick, and it's not fun when someone you love is sick. No, I don't have anything exciting to report. What about you?
Well, I blew someone up with a lightning bolt.
Oh, thank God. I was hoping. I'm sure they had it coming.
No, they were completely innocent. I was just like, you look like you're pretty lightning centric. You look pretty lightning friendly.
Just a random fucker on the street, and you were like,
I said, sir, could you hold this umbrella for a moment? No, but the work's going good. I'm just doing a lot of stuff for sort of personal transformation of my my current identity, as it were. So hopefully, if that goes really well, in about 2 or 3 more episodes, I'll come in with a much more attractive voice and demeanor, and maybe won't be so mean to everybody.
I got a joke I want to make, but I'm going to bite my tongue on it.
Oh, jeez.
I hope it goes well. I really do. I'm pulling for you. I think, is that about it for this episode?
Yeah, that's about it. I think this is where we have to wrap it up. So, with that being said, this has been Chaos Magic News. The only news source who's the Buddha's infinite compassion still has a hard time with.
As always, if you're interested in joining the Order of the Lorax, please plant a crickle crack tree seed in your backyard, and above it ascribe the sigil of the all-seeing eye. We will be in contact with you in the dead of night.
If you want more from us, you can check us out on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We're all at Chaos Magic News. You can check out the website, chaosmagicnews.com, where we have the podcast, interviews, and articles. Pretty much anything you could ever possibly want from us. And with that, Retrograde, would you like the last word? Oh, God. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye. As always, if you're interested in joining the Order of the Lorax, please plant a crickle crack tree in your backyard and ascribe the all-seeing eye above the dirt that you buried it in.
Oh my God. We have to redo that because you missed fucking part of it, dumbass.
Oh, damn. Okay. What's the part that I was missing?